Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to start off by giving all glory, honor, and praises unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Achakorash. Double honors unto the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us this truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful electors out there listening, learning, and or teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom. Hey, shalom, Akim. Today, I want to go into the topic of, when to speak, how to speak, just the topic of speaking in general. And, sometimes you don't always have to respond to people. Sometimes you should respond to people. But then other times, it's how you respond. Okay. And just using wisdom with the tongue, and just kind of exploring that topic. Okay. The scriptures talk about the tongue. Okay. Let's get this precept real quick. This is Proverbs 18 and 21. It says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it shall eat the fruit thereof. Okay, so just going into how, it's important, to, your tongue has a lot of power, okay? And basically the point being how to use it properly, for lack of a better word. Okay, so we're just going to go into a few scriptures and explore, the topic of, speaking in general. Okay, so Ecclesiastes 3 and 7, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Right, so sometimes you should speak. Okay, if you have wisdom, knowledge, and understanding on a particular topic, you're with the brethren. Okay, bring it out. Don't keep it to yourself. Don't stay silent. Take a risk. Sometimes we don't have all the ideas lined up how we want to say it, but open your mouth, trust the spirit, and take a risk. If you got some wisdom, it's gonna come out, and it's gonna be edifying. If you're making a salakia, I'm underlining the wrong one. A time to speak, right? So, sometimes you let's say you've been doing research on a topic, hey, make a video on it, man. Don't wait for yourself to forget, to be like, oh man, I should have hopped on it. Hey, like the apostle Ariamlab always says, hey, strike while the iron is hot, man. Okay? You're going into a topic in this truth. You did your research, maybe you saw a movie or something that inspired you. The spirit got hot, and it's like, hey, make that lesson right there. Or if you don't make a lesson, maybe you don't have time, maybe you at the plantation when you got the inspiration, hey, write it down, put it in your note files document in your phone. Make a voice recording so you can make that lesson later, because it's a time to speak, man. Right? The apostle Tahar says, one way to remember things is to make a lesson on it. If you just learn a topic, and something interesting, hey, make a lesson, man. Don't just keep that to yourself and then never bring it out ever. Your scripture says, does people light a candle and put it under a basket? Roughly paraphrasing. All right, so let your light shine. But there's times, like it says here, a time to keep silence. Okay, when you're at the job, this is a great example, man. You're a new brother. You just came into this truth. You just found out that you're a Hebrew Israelite. Don't go to your job and tell your boss that he's an Edomite and that he's going into slavery. Akim, hey, Baba Kusha, don't do that. It's not the right place and it's not the right time. Okay? Yeah. These devils are going to know they're Edomites, and they're going to feel that boot up their ass when it's time to put them in slavery. But right now, we're still in their kingdom. So we got to be more low key, and we got to wait upon who? Yahweh Ba'ashim Shai. Okay? The plantation is not the place to be preaching this truth and giving out all type of gems and pearls to people. Okay? Now, I get it. Sometimes brothers are zealous. All right? You really want to minimize that. right? If your mouth is just out of control, but really you should have the discipline to stop talking about it at work. Now, hey, maybe there's somebody at work, and the spirit is on you to talk to him. You just got to feel them out. Some people, you can trust them, man. I've told people from the plantation before, okay, but it's very far and few in between. I'm not telling everybody this beautiful wisdom, knowledge, understanding, because we have it's just not wise. That could come back and bite you in the ass. You could lose your job, okay, so on and so forth. So we have a designated place to teach this truth, okay, and that's on the highways and byways, and while we making these videos, okay. Now, when you out and about in everyday life, it's a case by case basis, but you shouldn't be eager to just tell everybody. It's just unwise. Okay, I want to grab some more precepts and see what else we got here. Okay, yeah, here we go. Proverbs 9:7. He that reproveth a scorner getteth to himself shame, and he that rebuketh a wicked man getteth himself a blot. Right? And something that comes to mind here, when you rebuke a scorner or someone who's wicked, all right, it's like you trying to push it on them, man. Let's say, I'll give an example, man. Certain family members I told them about this truth. They have a small understanding of the Bible because they've been to the Christian church, so-called, and they don't always listen, man. They got their own opinions. It's like at the end of the day, you tell them they're Israelite and they just get angry and they insult you and they act like you're just this terrible guy because you're a so-called racist. Well, the Lord is racist. Okay, and I know a lot of you brethren might have the scriptures to prove it to them, but at the end of the day, it's really not worth it. Okay, because once you you give them one or two attempts at convincing them, and they keep going on and they just want to argue, it's like, hey, let it go, man. Let it go, because all you're gonna do is piss that person off, and they're gonna bring shame to your name. They're gonna start spreading rumors about you. And it's just not wise. Okay? It says, reprove not a scorner lest he hate thee. Rebuke a wise man and he will love thee. Right? In your family, you might have a woman in your family. I remember when I first got into the truth, I told a woman, you should be wearing dresses and not pants because that's a man's clothing. Or, I told her, pray with your head covered, this, that, and a third. And I remember before I would tell her certain little things and she would kind of do it, but then after a while she started bucking up and arguing with me and like, oh, well who are you to say this and who are you to say that and blah blah blah. And it's like I just kept being stubborn and kept trying to correct her, and after a while, it just kind of caused problems. At the end of the day, all of our family ain't gonna make it, man. You got cousins, aunts, uncles, brothers, sisters. Okay, I know it's hard, but hey, you gotta let it go, man. If they don't want to accept this truth, you're not gonna. At the end of the day, the Lord is the one who gives them that wisdom, knowledge, understanding, man. You can't, no matter how hard you tell them or try, you could scream it till you're blue in the face. You could go from this precept to that precept, line upon line, proving it perfectly, perfect, flawless logic. They not gonna get it because it's for the Lord to put it in them, right? So if they scorn and you rebuke them, they're gonna hate you, right? If your cousin wants to go out there and be a whore, and you tell her, hey, the wages of sin is death. In the ancient world, a woman who was an adulteress got put to death, and she's a big time scorner. She might just go around telling people, oh, can you believe my cousin said I deserve to die because my man wasn't giving it to me good, so I got another man, and now he telling me I deserve to die. Then all your family, you gonna get all these phone calls like, hey, who you telling? Why you telling her she needs to kill herself or this and that? And it's like, no, that's not what I said, but blah blah blah. And then the rumors spread and they change, and one thing leads to another, and next thing you know, you got a big blot on your name. Everybody's looking at you like, oh, there's that Hebrew Israelite guy, man. Stay away from him. You don't need that type of drama in your life. Okay? But look what it says here. Rebuke a wise man and he will love thee, right? A wise man, okay? A good example of that. You might have a brother in this truth and he's in a bad situation. Like, hey, brother, this is why you're in that situation. You shouldn't be doing that. And the brother, you bring out that precept and the brother's like, wow, the water. I should have listened to that. Yeah. And now that brother is built up, and from there he won't do it again. He actually will listen, right? So it's like they say in the world, man. Don't give out free advice, or don't give out advice that people didn't ask for, pretty much. The brethren in this truth, they can take advice, okay? But people out there in the world, a lot of time is just not going to be worth it. All right. So I'm going to grab another precept here. So now going into this precept, let me see something. Yeah, so going into Matthews 10 and 16, okay, this is more talking about, dealing with certain people that are demons. Okay, this is Matthew 10 and 16. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Right? So, this, there's a lot of things this can apply to, but, basically what comes to mind here, you got a lot of scoffers that might come to camp. And a lot of times people will have questions, but they're not sincere questions, right? They might have a question to try to draw you into a debate or an argument that they have already planned out in order to make you look bad and make themselves look good for their agenda. Okay. All right. These type of people, like you got these vocab Malones out there, you got these people from the Plantation Christian Church. Okay. They might come up and ask you questions a certain way, on the grape doctrine, like that brother Polite or whatever. Oh, if you had a daughter, would you want a man to grape her? Right? And it's a stupid ass question because we never told nobody to go grape nobody. You see? So they take things you say out of context. They ask you certain questions a certain way. You could think about how the Pharisees and Sadducees did with Yahushua, man. They asked him questions in a fucked up way to make him look bad, trying to, trap him in speech. But what did Yahushua do? He was very wise. Yahushua is very wise, man. Hey, Yahushua is Solomon in the reincarnation, if you can receive it. We know how wise Solomon was, so how much more wise is he now as Yahushua? He already learned from the sins in his past life as Solomon, so now he's even more wise. Ain't nobody could confound Yahushua, man. Nobody could do it. Okay, so we gotta take that example, man, and understand how to answer these questions that people come at you with, and some people ain't even worth dealing with, honestly. Like vocab Malones and people that just come up and they just keep screaming and they won't let you talk, and they want to jump from one topic to another. Hey, don't even deal with them, man. Like the scripture we just read, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Those people ain't gonna learn anything. Okay, and you gotta understand they're out to get you. They might start filming you or whatever. And then try to get a sound bite out of you. What do they do with our videos, man? I looked at some of Vocab Malone's videos. What he does is he takes certain clips from brothers or the apostles, and he will cut part of the audio out and make it sound like, like they said something, but they said it in a certain context, but he cuts the context out and just has that one soundbite to make them look bad. You see, so you got to understand. Let's read it again. Behold, I send you forth as a sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Right. Do what's right, but understand that you are out here against snakes and demons. So you got to use wisdom and cunning as well, but use it the right way. Right? Like one thing that comes to mind, there's a book, I think it's called 48 Laws of Power, something along them lines, where it shows you how people manipulate people and, all type of things, which, that could be a book to get into. I haven't read it myself, but I've heard brothers that read it. What it does is it allows you to see through people's manipulation tactics, and allows you to see it so that when people try to use it on you, they can't really use it on you. Right? Now, a terrible person could grab that book and use it against people, but a good person could grab that book and use it to defend themselves against manipulation. Okay? So, I say that to say that, just be mindful that, of what questions people ask, how they ask it, and understand that people are just trying to frame what you say and give a wise answer. Don't just take everything that people say as face value. Don't be a sheep. Okay, be like a serpent, but also be harmless. Don't be a demon yourself. Okay. This is 1 Peter's 3:15. But sanctify the Lord power in your hearts, and be ready always to give an answer to every man that asketh you a reason of the hope that is in you with meekness and fear, having a good conscience, that whereas they speak evil of you, as of evildoers, they may be ashamed and falsely accuse your good conversation in Hamashiach Yahawashi. So yeah, be ready to give answer if somebody does, ask, well, why do you believe this or that? Okay, give the breakdown. Okay, but just do it in a wise way. Like the scripture says, you're gonna break it down line upon line. Okay, but you gotta also understand that some people ain't sincere. But if they are sincere, hey, give that breakdown, and give it in a way that it comes out in a way that they can't really say anything evil about you. Okay, ultimately, like it says here, with meekness and fear. Okay, we rightly divide in the word of truth. All right, we're not trying to act like we better than anybody out here, treating people a certain type of way, but ultimately we're trying to preach directly and correctly. Okay, and anybody that wants to speak any wickedness of us, they're gonna be confounded, man. They're not gonna be able to say anything against us. All right, like that brother Polite, he said all that slander. Okay, Vocab Malone, they say all that slander, but when we go into the scriptures, okay, they don't believe the scriptures, man. So who's really the bad guy, man? We're teaching directly out of the Bible, man. We're not teaching anything of our own. We're not making up our own doctrines. We're not out here telling you to live like people did in the ancient world. Now, we try to keep the law to the best of our ability, but certain things we can't do like we did in the ancient world because it's unwise. Okay, that takes discernment. Okay, but see, people want to look at things in a black and white way, to try to accuse you. Give the full explanation, and, they won't be able to say anything about you, man. All right, those that falsely accuse us, okay, those people are going to be confounded ultimately at the end of the day, man. And sometimes, hey, once you give that breakdown and they still ain't having it, what do? Hey, reject them, man. Okay, I want to grab Titus 3:10. A man that is a heretic after the first and second admonition, reject. Let's get this word, a heretic, G141, heretikos. What does it mean? Fitted or able to take or choose a thing. Schismatic, factious, a follower of a false doctrine. Right there, man. Follower of a false doctrine. So somebody come up to camp talking about, oh, Jesus Christ is the true name. Somebody post a comment in your comment board. Jesus Christ is the real name. This, that, and the third. Hey, we already told them, look, the letter J was not used like that 300 years ago. The letter J is not even that old. Okay, they start talking more shit, blah, blah, blah. Okay, look, the New Testament was written in Greek. Yahushua has a Hebrew name. The word Jesus goes back to earth pig. The real word that should be there is Joshua. And Joshua in the Hebrew is Yahushua, which means he saves, he delivers. You go into that. He's still talking shit. Well, I had a dream and an angel told me the name is Jesus and I got off drugs that way and this, that, and third and blah, blah. Okay, that's it, man. It's a time to keep silence now, man. It's a time to let that shit go. Or not shit, but, let that person go. Like the elder high priest Yaquab said, if a nigga don't get it, we moving on. Reject them. That's why the apostle Tahar said, if these Christians, plantation Christians come up acting crazy to the camp, call the cops. Because that's all they're gonna do is interrupt the edification and try to be a demon, man. I had a friend I used to work with. I told him about the truth, and he made it his life's mission to try to prove me wrong, man. And every time he thought he proved me wrong, I would educate him. He'd be like, well, what does that mean? And I'd go into it, bring out history, bring out the scriptures, tie it up with prophecy. Then he'd jump to another topic. Well, so you're saying this and that, and you're full of hate. And then I bring out the scripture. Well, the Lord hates those. I forgot what I said, but it was, it proved it pretty much 100%, man. That the Lord hates. And then he jumped to another topic. Well, why do you break down every scripture so deep? Like, why are you dissecting it? It's not meant to be dissected. It's meant to be however you feel about it. It was like an emotional thing for him. So I brought out Isaiah 28:9. Precept upon precept, line upon line. And I made this mistake of arguing with this guy. I argued with him for an hour. This was when I was first new to the truth. And he's still the same guy. He's still the same scoffer. Hey, don't waste your breath, Akim. All right? So that's pretty much today's lesson. I know it was all over the place. These were just some precepts that were on my spirit. On the topic of when you should speak, when you shouldn't speak, and how to speak, when you're dealing with scoffers and people that, that don't want to be corrected. Okay, hey, don't correct those people. Don't be, you might be talking to somebody at work. They might bring up Jesus. You don't have to be like, well, Yahushua is his real name. You don't have to do that at work, man. It's not the place. It's not the time. That person could get offended. Next thing you know, it's going to bring you more trouble. All right, we don't need to be out there like that. Okay, but I pray that lesson was edifying to the hopeful elect. I want to finish by giving all glory, honor, and praises unto Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushai, Bahashim Achakodash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us this truth. A sincere shalom to the hopeful elect that's out there listening, learning, and or teaching in truth and sincerity. Shalom wa. Abba Shalom.